when I actually take them off.
How did you get by the laser field in the Great Hall?
Aha. The laser fields. Well.
I totally cut you off. How rude am I?
I know, right?
As I do, I can't see.
Now I'm leaving. I'm not going to do this with you. This is over.
Yeah, well, you're going to let down KGC Canadian. KG Canadian.
It's just the way it is.
Is it the same KG? Concan, Yesy, Aussie. What's going on?
Hey, Tara.
Yeah, Tara's in the house. I had a little bit of a conversation with her.
I owe her an apology. She messaged me the other day, and when I was at work, and I completely forgot to send her a message back. Sorry, Tara. I'm very sorry. I feel like an asshole.
Totally rude, man.
I know I'm awful when it comes to responding to my texts.
I'm going to run the intro over you again.
I would deserve it, no doubt.
Ian in the house.
Hey, Ian.
Okay, so yesterday, interesting day. Let's get your take on things. I went on and on for a while, so I want to hear what you have to say.
Well, in that case, I better open up my notes.
Yes.
So, because I was making sure I was taking them all throughout the whole thing. So first of all, they called this an RCMP update on the Nova Scotia shooting. It was not an update. It was another RCMP defense. It was them. They didn't really answer very many questions, but, they did everything they could to cover their own ass. So that's really what this was. So saying that it was an update is actually inaccurate. But anyway, as I was we kind of chatted a little bit about it before, but this update, so to say, they ended up they didn't answer any really of the big questions. They ended up just opening the door for more questions, which they've been consistently doing. But on top of that, one thing that I did find was kind of interesting is they did contradict themselves a couple times in this press conference, which we can get into. But in one ways that they ended up covering their own asses on this is actually a good example was what Leather ended up talking about, because he started to talk about the emergency alert system. And what he ended up saying is how, it hadn't been used yet for an active shooter. But then he made reference to what happened on April 24th. And he made reference to how there was we got a credible report of, an active shooter moving towards the city and with automatic gunfire. But this was just the situation with the pellet gun. And as a defense for himself, he ended up saying that they decided to use the alert system, and then they got flooded with all of these calls that were weren't emergencies. He's saying the people saying, where should I go to hide? Do I need to pick up my kids? And he was trying to use this as an actual defense as to why they didn't use the alert system on the 18th and 19th. Although he's right in one regard that those weren't actually emergency questions, but they're pretty damn valid questions to ask the authorities if there is an active situation, especially what took place just a few days beforehand. It doesn't surprise me this is what ended up happening. So I was unimpressed with what they ended up going through in this press conference, but it was no more than I really expected. And this has really nothing to do with the updates, but what was her name? The Jennifer Clark, the one who was being the moderator, her French sucks. I mean, I'm not that great with French, but her French is god awful. I spent 12 years of it going through school, and you at least expect her to have some of the accent if you want. That was god awful. So just my small little pet peeve on that. But
so yeah, I'm not good with French, so You probably have to know that stuff down there, don't you?
Oh yeah, we're right on the border, so we actually get a fair amount of French speaking. In fact, you can't work these days. You pretty much can't work a government job if you're not bilingual, which technically I am. I have my certificate. Don't ask me to speak French because my French is how you say la merde.
Ooh, that's a dirty word. I know that one.
Yeah, it is a dirty word.
Oh, bilingual, is that one of the 83 Facebook genders?
Hey, at least bilingual is actually real. It's a real thing that you can show a degree on. It's not one of the 86 genders, 87 billion genders from the LGBTQ community.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that.
Mine has validity behind it.
So her French blows. Okay, and
that's really the most important part of that press conference.
Probably there. Yeah. No, well, there were a few things that happened, though.
Yes, there was. There was actually kind of interesting things. And the one that it stood out to me, I've got a couple. I'll probably they'll sort of pop up as I'm going through. But one thing that I found was interesting was that, of course, without in so many words, it seemed like Campbell was making reference to us and what we're doing here, what we're doing on the Discord server, all the information we're plugging through, because he ended up saying at one point that one of the purposes of this press conference was to, quote, clarify any of the information that has been circulating from a variety of sources. And seems quite clear to me that we are one of those sources because they've clearly been paying attention what's been being said on your streams, because we've been talking about things, and then a day or two later, they were coming out and changing their story in order to make it match. What was it? There was also a reference to how there's, when it came to these situations, there's no room for speculation, which is...
I'm going to correct you because it's not my stream. This is just our stream. It's everybody's stream, if you don't mind. Sorry to interrupt, but
fair enough. Just giving credit where credit's due.
No, credit is due to everybody here. So, because it's everybody's hard work.
Well, the main thing that stood out to me in this conference, like when I heard it, I immediately kind of had to do the double take, was that when Campbell was giving his updates, he ended up speaking of where it was. He ended up contradicting himself because he ended up speaking about, when he spoke about Wortman's car, he ended up bringing up the fact that this was the mock police vehicle, which has been the way they've been putting it in their press conferences, the way that it's being reported in the news, that it's a mock-up police car. Yet we know from the warrants that were released, they ended up saying that these were decommissioned police cars. So we know that they were legitimate police cars. And he, again, despite the fact he talked about the mock-up police car, he then pivots to talk about the retired police vehicles. So right there, we're catching him in a lie, because we know for a fact that by now that this is an official police vehicle. Even if it wasn't one that was on active duty, it was at one point an official police vehicle, even if it was for a day. But this is the way that they're trying to frame the narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And if you like, we can go through more of it more and more. But let's see. All right, let's see. Where was it? Okay, so one thing, too, is off the bat, they're starting to talk about when they originally showed up at Portapic. And this is the thing that, from the witness testimony that we've heard already, is that it took the police a long time in order to actually get themselves engaged and go into Portapic and do something about this. Now, they did acknowledge this to an extent inside of their press conference. They did make reference to how, they assembled everyone, and this took over a course of a few hours in order to get into Portapic and actually clear it all out. But the way that they presented this was that right off the bat, the RCMP, as soon as they got on the situation, they were aware of how bad things were. And they began coordinating task force and then sending their officers in order to start clearing out civilians. And they had these people in a sort of a hunker down in their homes. But this runs contrary to the information that we have available. For instance, in the one article that was written, I think, by the Halifax Examiner, It was called The Cracks Are Forming in the RCMP Cone of Silence. They made reference in there about how... Sorry, my dog barked. They made reference in there about how the RCMP were actually holding back on their response, and not just holding back, but there was this whole communication breakdown between the brass and the people on the ground. So nobody apparently really knew what they were doing. As well, on top of this, if we take what they said in this press conference and we compare that to what they ended up saying in their Twitter timeline, the first tweet they put out, they said they're responding to a firearms complaint. Now, that's very different from an active shooter.
Mm-hmm.
So, along with choosing the specific day, which it just so happens to fall on the, just so happens in quotation marks, falls on the anniversary of the Moncton shooting, where we had 3 or I think it was 4 RCMP officers that were killed. So, painting themselves once again as the victim by putting it on this day with Stevenson being killed and Morrison being injured in the line of duty. They can paint themselves as the poor RCMP just trying to do their jobs. And once again, they lost another member in the line of duty. Another one is shot. So along with that, and everything that they tried to play up in the very beginning of this press conference, they tried to make it seem like they were on the ball from the very beginning. They didn't drop the ball. They didn't do anything wrong. No, in fact, not only were they there and ready to go right off the bat, but they did absolutely everything possible in order to make sure that the people of Portapique, the citizens that were in there, were saved. But the fact that about more than 10% of the population of Portapique got killed tells a completely different story.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, I found it like it did something. There was a physiological response to some of the things that he was saying, aside from just kind of anger, actually, that they were all saying. But the going on and on about how Canada was behind them and that they were heroes and they'd done this fantastic job and the families were so thankful to them. And it was disgusting. It was disgusting. The other one that I noticed was the use of the families as a shield was really disgusting. Like, that is like worse than grave robbing almost. They're saying we don't want to answer anything because we don't want to upset the families. And I was like, that is a pure cognitive disconnect, because I think most of the families want answers. That's why you have lawsuits already starting and people paying attention to this kind of stuff. If they don't want answers, as in they don't want to know certain things, that is a free society, and that's why they're going to dial out. If that's in fact so, but I don't think there's any family member I've heard of yet in the press that doesn't want answers. And yet they're hiding behind it. The shields that people develop. I know other ones we won't get into.
Well, the thing is, too, about that is that it's contrary to even what the families are saying, because there was something about, number one, they're not opening a public inquiry into the shooting, which says enough. I'm sure these families, most of these families, not all, would be more than happy to have a public inquiry to know what really happened. But there was even a article in this.
Can you back up? Like, that's been confirmed? There will be no public inquiry?
As far as I've seen, there's the Premier McNeil has pretty much said it's not going to happen. And I think I remember hearing something about Justin Trudeau is pretty much has no real plans opening a public inquiry. So I shouldn't say for a fact it's a definite it's not going to happen, but they're leaning in that direction. And it seems like both governments, the Nova Scotia government and the federal government, seem to be leaning in that direction. And there was even something from the CBC just within the last few days that said that the families say back and forth between Nova Scotia, Ottawa over shooting probe unreal. And the byline says, why can't we get any answers at all 40 days in? So clearly the families are unhappy with what's going on. They're unhappy that they haven't been able to get answers. And yet they're still falling back on this idea of, well, we don't want to give any definites because we don't want to upset them. It's a cop-out, and it's using them as cannon fodder right in front of them, right in front of themselves, which is disgusting. Hell, it's bad enough they did it in this shooting that took place. but now they're continuing to do it. They're doing it once again.
They're re-victimizing these people.
That's a good description.
You know, like I don't like the victim mentality, but these people are victims, true victims. They deserve justice, and nobody is going to give it to them. You know, that's why I'm hopefully, you know, something we can do here can spark interest.
At the very least, if we can keep people asking questions, then I think it's sort of the snowball effect. I think that if we keep asking questions, more people are going to ask questions, and we're not going to let it die. So that way the RCMP can't let it die either. And sooner or later, people are just going to get fed up with not being given any answers. So, for instance, you were telling me today about how in this quote unquote update, in this press conference, Frank Magazine was told that they could not attend. Well, I think that you're going to see a lot more people that are going to be either showing up on their own demanding answers, or maybe even they're going to be demanding that the reporters ask tougher questions and put the pressure on them. So that way they will be willing to go in and ask them the questions that the RCMP don't want to answer, and hopefully hold them to account. If the RCMP try and give them a runabout answer, they'll just stop them and say, no, that wasn't my question. Give me an answer on this. Besides, the RCMP can only hide behind a lot of these tactics for so long, such as, well, it's an ongoing investigation. Well, sooner or later, that investigation is going to close, and then there's no excuse anymore about why they can't give the answers, which is really why I think they're trying to hope that this story will die before those investigations are closed, because then they can give the answers. Yes,
but you know, they'll dream up more. I guarantee you. The business about the psychological autopsy, that has been used as an excuse also, because they're conducting the psychological autopsy. They can't answer questions. I don't know if you've heard that one. They pull excuses out of a lot of different places.
Mm-hmm. Yep, they do. And it's not even good excuses. They're grasping for straws at this point. And for the moment, it's working. They're managing to dodge the questions coming in, but sooner or later, those straws are going to break, and there's nothing more that they'll be able to hide behind. So, I think that if we're able to keep the story alive at least long enough that these investigations are done, then we'll at least have them exactly where we want them. So.
Yeah, and I was thinking about it. I don't think I mentioned that. I mean, I know we've all spoken about that, but I think it's time here fairly shortly to compile a list of like an email CC list, and start dropping some of these things, like the ones, fairly easy ones that journalists might find a little tasty, like the no push bar.
Mm-hmm.
I think most journalists, and if we have, like, it's going out to everybody, you know, all big journalist outlets, plus the ones that are specifically very much following this, the two authors over at Halifax Examiner and the one in Maclean's magazine, the CBC lady last night, and also throwing in a bunch of politicians, Bill Blair, you know, RCMP, et cetera, and just mass email them, you know, here's the facts, and watch what happens.
No, I think you're right, because there are still at least a few good journalists out there asking questions. And like you've said, they've got a lot more pull than any one of us do. I mean, we got each, 1,000, 2,000 almost subscribers on each of our channels, but we're only reaching to a certain so far. These people at least have a national platform that they can then get the ball rolling, get people asking these questions all over the country. So that way there's nowhere that they can go where people aren't going to be asking, what the hell happened that night? Well, you know, you claim that you immediately jumped into action in Portapic, and yet for some reason, despite the fact you say you acted so quickly and cordoned everything off, the man still managed to slip by you. And don't give me this BS about him going through a field, because, you know, his car's no way he could make it through a field. You clearly let him slip by your own blockades, simply because he was dressed as a police officer with equipment and with equipment that he shouldn't have, with uniforms he shouldn't have, with decals that he shouldn't have. Somehow you let this slip by you. And I mean, I've also watched as they're trying to switch the narrative on Gabriel Wortman. At first, when this all came out, he was a man who had an RCMP fascination. We got the yearbook photo of him where he's saying, you know, people thought he was going to be a police officer. Now suddenly he's a guy who hated the police and he wanted to kill police very conveniently.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't make sense for all of the RCMP and police memorabilia he had. I decided that before
we Jew too.
What's that?
Maybe he's a self-hating Jew.
Maybe.
The disconnect.
But I decided to take a quick look online before we went live. Just didn't do an in-depth search, but just a cursory search of some of the equipment that they claimed that he had, because the RCMP claimed in that press conference that he bought a lot of the equipment inside of his car, that he bought it from online auctions. Now, you can buy some of this equipment online, no doubt, but it's not cheap. For instance, if you want a radar gun, a handheld one, you're paying $700 at least. If you want one that was on like his dash, $1,000 minimum, and you're probably paying more than that. So this guy had 4 mock-up police cruisers. He had one that was decked out with all the bells and the whistles. He put money into this. Yet for some reason, he hated the RCMP. He hated cops. He wanted to kill cops. This is like claiming that somebody, like, let's say the Star Wars fan base, somebody who has all the books, all the movies, all the costumes, just happens to hate Star Wars so much. It doesn't add up. None of it makes any sense.
No, and some of those things, the cage, for instance, I looked into the cage. The cage is only purchasable from the United States. And it's from, like, there's maybe 2 outlets, and you have to have an account with them, and that's verified that you're part of a police department. So how in the hell does he buy a cage? You can't get one. That's removed. I've never seen a police car that's decommissioned that has a cage in it.
Mm-hmm. Nope, me neither. Whenever I've seen them, I've never seen one that's been decommissioned that has all the decals and everything attached to it. Which, once again, they refused to tell us who issued the decals, which business this was. They just said, oh, yeah, he got it from a business. They didn't really know, and they're cooperating with police. The best they can do. There's no reason to hide the company from us. In fact, it would make more sense if they would help their case if they released the information as to who this company was, because then people could independently verify it and be like, okay, they actually do make decals for police. And, you know, they could question the people directly, give them a call, be like, did you guys do this for Wortman? And they can say, yeah, you know, we didn't know, but we made a huge mistake on this one. Or they can say, no, we never did that. They keep saying, the RCMP saying we did it. We never gave this guy the decals. But this is another secret of theirs that they're unwilling to part with. They're still keeping it on lockdown, very tight-lipped. And it seems to me it's most likely because there probably isn't a business that did this for him. He probably got it through official means. Or just to finish up, as our buddy Rage is talking about, it's that you need to have there's a code or something when you're getting these decals that to let you know that you're part of the police force. He had these codes in which allowed him to get official RCMP decals, and which begs the question, how did he get that?
Yeah, and why aren't people, if the RCMP are telling, in fact, the truth, which I'm sorry, at this point in time, I've seen enough times where the RCMP have bald-faced lied throughout this process, and in other cases that I've been looking at. Why haven't they charged somebody over at the decal shop?
That's a good question. I mean,
they say they're both cooperating, and they're very helpful. But they did something that was illegal, no?
As I understand it, they did. And I mean, you don't need to play good cop with these people in order to friggin' get the information that you want. You pull them into the station. If they've done something illegal, and you cut a deal with them. You say, listen, you did something highly illegal. Tell us everything you know. We'll go easy on you. If you don't, then we're going to throw the book at you. It's that simple. And yet there's no reference that they've made an arrest. There's no reference that they've done anything of the sort aside for question them. So,
yeah, I don't know. Strange stuff. So you've got a notebook of things, which is good. My notebook's always my head, which is a jumbled mess. Hey, Crit, what's going on, sir? Good to always see him. He's been working hard on his on stuff over there too. Now, let's start into your notebook a little bit.
All right. So we'll just quickly finish up with the first part when they're talking about what happened in Portapique. So another question is that they said that they were on the scene immediately, set up their teams ready to go, waiting for the armored vehicle, but they had the least of situation quarantined. We've already asked the question as to why, how did the guy slip out? Then on top of that, there's also the question of why did they downplay in their tweets what was going on, because they said it was a firearms complaint, which to me tells me more like a guy's walking down the road with a shotgun, or he's sort of threatening people with a shotgun but hasn't fired anything. That's the way it comes off to me. Mm-hmm. The next question I have is, why did they wait more than an hour to release this information to the public? Why did they wait till 11:30 and almost an hour and a half after the first shots are fired to put out this tweet? Because if it was something serious, ready to go, then they should have been on the ball immediately and been like, hey, let people know, get on Twitter, let people know, even if that was the way they wanted to release this information.
Yeah, but what had happened sorry to interrupt, but what had happened? I think this one, and that was that, let's see actually if I have that clip. That was an awesome question that Frank asked. Frank getting banned from the press conference is so interesting because he never did anything that was, quote, disruptive. What had he done in that hour and a half? Well,
in that first hour and a half, by that point, he, according, at least going on what the RCMP said, he's already burned down, 7 homes? At least, we're talking at least 3. Yeah, and he's killed 13 people.
Yeah, and they know this. And they know that he's driving the police car. And they know who it is. So that's right away. That's almost instant. The first responder found that out. The first police car, that was on scene, 10:26, an hour before the tweet about the the firearms complaint, which is, somebody carrying around a gun. It's not necessarily, it could be a discharge of a gun, but by this time, you've already got homicides on your hands. You've already got arsons, and you've known about it for an hour, and you're going to tweet out on using Twitter, but you're going to tweet out it's a firearms complaint?
Sorry, I'm just laughing because I smoke weed like it's air said. It looks like Jimso is blowing vape in Lil Grey Cell's ear.
Well, it probably, it's like go in one ear, out the other.
But yes, according to the witnesses, one of them who got shot early on, they even said that the person who shot them was driving an RCMP vehicle, or at least a cop car. So they knew, even if they don't know, let's just give them the benefit of the doubt and say they didn't know it was Wortman. They knew that their suspect was driving around in a cop car, probably looked like a cop, and yet they did absolutely nothing to act on that. In fact, from what we know, even this whole talk about how they organize these task force and these teams, like one of the teams was, they called it a immediate action rapid deployment team.
Yeah, the immediate ass team. Okay.
Yeah, but we know that there was a bunch of cops that were sitting back in town not doing anything about this. And the cops who went into Portapique were actually breaking orders. They were going against what they were told to do and were deciding to take matters into their own hands, which is, in my opinion, astounding that a cop going into a dangerous situation is actually going against orders. but it took them hours to get through to do anything of relevance in there. We know that from Clinton Ellison, who was stuck in the woods for upwards of 4 hours, and apparently also from the girlfriend who was there until morning time. I mean, she would have known. She would have come out much earlier if we're going by that she was actually out there until morning, because that's a good question. Then she would have been out there. She would have been coming out of the forest much earlier than just morning time. They also are trying to claim that in that time, Wortman, he escaped. He went to Debert for the next few hours. And yet we have gunshots that were going on for hours after the fact.
Yes. So this business, and they did admit that tacitly last night, extended periods of time. They also admitted the response was slow, the 911 calls. You're just mentioning about the cruiser and how they didn't know it until the morning because of the girlfriend, which is absolute horseshit. But here you go, is leather lying right away. If I can get it to go.
Follow-up. Can you speak to how and when did the RCMP first become aware that there was a man in the province with a fake but real-looking police car and a uniform?
Those details came in their totality to us early in the morning of Sunday after a key witness was located and interviewed. Prior to that time, we did not have all those details.
Really? Prior to that time, you didn't have those details. That is contrary to the witness statement. That is contrary to the warrants. That is contrary to the information that says immediately upon arrival, they encountered a man who said that he was shot by a man who was driving in a police car, and that they had identified basically that this was Wortman by that point in time. So this fucking garbage and plus, if you want to not believe that they didn't know that it was Wortman, why are they showing up at the father's house an hour and a half before the woman comes out of and he says it's between 7 and 8. But let's just say, finally got the time wrong, 6:30, whatever, she comes out of the woods. Why are they showing up over in Moncton, New Brunswick, at the father's house saying, we better get you out of here at 5 in the morning? The girlfriend doesn't even come out for an hour and a half to say, yeah, you know what? It's my boyfriend, husband, whatever he is.
No, that's a damn good question. Which means that I agree with your original theory on this, that as soon as they heard the location of it, and again, especially when they found out about it being a police cruiser, they knew immediately that it was Gabriel Wortman. Because this is a guy that was known to him, as much as, they're trying to hide, and even they did in this press conference about, the documents we needed, there was only like a 2-year, in one of the questions they were asking, there was a 2-year period in which they then sort of scrub the documents, get rid of them, unless it was like a homicide, they said, and they keep it for like 70. But these people knew exactly who the man was. Even if it was not the documents, there was someone that they had extended interaction with, that they knew exactly who was doing this shooting. And the thing was, too, is even press corps, they ended up, like one of the, I don't remember who it was, but whoever it was in the Discord ended up dropping this. It was press corps who ended up saying that, these sort of vehicles, that they have a tracking system built into them. So the RCMP could have known exactly where he was at any point in time, and yet they didn't use this system in order to catch him. Or if they were using this system to track him, then apparently they deliberately let him go out on this rampage for the next 13 hours or whatever the hell it was, or 12 hours, that he just was on the run.
Don't worry, they have 17 million abbreviated name teams working on it. But they didn't pin him down in Wentworth or lock down in Portapique with multiple roadblocks, because they immediately set up their perimeters also. So how the fuck did he get out?
That's a damn good question. I mean, the only way I can see it, walking right through the door. The other thing too is just a bit of a sidetrack, but you know, what is the point of all of this surveillance that they're doing on the citizens if in a situation like this they can't even catch the guy? They're claiming he doesn't have a cell phone. I don't personally believe that, but they're keeping an eye on everybody's social media, keeping an eye on your emails, your text messages. They're tapping into your webcams and your cameras on your phones just to keep as much information on you. And you can't stop a guy going on a 12-hour killing spree that killed 22 people.
No. And I mean, this was just a piggyback for more of this nonsense that they are asking for now. You know, from your Groupons to the darknet, they want to know absolutely everything about everybody, but they can't even get their own shit together in their own house.
Well, you were even bringing up the other day when we were on the phone. You were talking about how they're using this to try and expand Project Wide Awake, which is which is monitoring people's social media activity. Yep. So apparently everybody's got to pay with what little rights you have left because this guy went on a rampage and the RCMP were too inept to do anything about it.
Does that sound reminiscent of 9/11?
More than a little.
Yep. And people will once again give away their rights. And it doesn't matter the fact that these guns were quote illegally obtained, which I don't necessarily believe, but they're illegally obtained, as in I believe that they're RCMP issue weapons, but they're illegally obtained. You know, so you're going to just take guns away from law-abiding people. It doesn't matter that you can't catch this man. You ignore your stuff. You destroy the documents. You have people dispatched. You are told exactly where the weapons are in Portapique, behind the chimney. You failed to do the search. On and on and on, multiple times, which he said also in yesterday's press conference, multiple times that they had dealt with Mr. Wortman, been to Mr. Wortman's stuff, and hadn't followed up on it. And out goes Mr. Wortman with all his guns in his behind his chimney, and he's fine. Nobody bothers him. We'll just let him go on his merry way. And then in so much as, okay, yeah, we'll let him out of Portapique so he can go and kill more people.
Fucking
but you
brilliant.
know what? We got to know about your Groupons.
They need to know what type of porn you're watching.
Yeah, you got to watch your webcam. Let's figure out everything about everybody else. Unbelievable.
Oh, yeah. No, you're absolutely right. And then they start getting into, after this point in the press conference, they start getting into, what was it? Oh, yeah. 1 second. Okay. The lady's just about to leave.
All right. Have a good evening.
All right, she's gone. Yeah, she just heading to work. So anyway, yeah, at this point in the press conference, they got into this talk about the other agencies that were involved in the search, right? Because they said, like, I'm only paraphrasing, but Campbell ended up saying that, you know, there's this thing of when other police agencies weren't involved in this, weren't kept in the loop, and that's untrue. And they said that they did keep these, which I assume is supposed to be Halifax and Truro and maybe a few other small police forces around Nova Scotia. But then they refuse to say which police forces were kept in the search. Which of these agencies did they actually contact?
Exactly. And this, you know why? And I was talking about that last night. They do that so that you as a person who is listening, you know, let's just say not one of us, right? But somebody who is not as following the story as closely, right? When they hear it's Truro Police Department and that there was a warning, they're going to go and probably, you know, there are going to be a few people, not everybody, but there are going to be a few people who will go and search that. Truro Police Department, prior incident in 2011. and they're going to get hits. But if you don't tell them what department, they can't look for it. So it's kind of just goes in one ear and out the other. This is very much psychological warfare, PR campaign crap. And this is all about PR. PR because they are on the defensive. From word go, as soon as they got that call on 911, they knew exactly who they were dealing with. Exactly who they were dealing with.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It seems quite clear from the way that they acted in this situation that they knew exactly it was Gabriel Wortman. And
okay. So sorry, I'm just going to throw this clip in here from Leather once again, busting them in lies.
No, he was not.
Was the suspect known to police at the time? No, he was not. Really? You'd only responded to him several times. He only had a criminal record. He'd had weapons complaints, death threats against police, death threats against, and somebody was commenting, he was well known in downtown Dartmouth, and we can get names. The person said, I'm willing to give you names of people who owned eating establishments where he was threatening people with that he was going to bring back a machine gun. I mean, this guy was totally out of control. He was totally known to police. And here you go. You've got Leather sitting up there fucking lying about it. Lying. These people are lying all over the place.
which this guy,
sorry,
this guy too, Leather, is absolutely terrible in this whole thing. In that press conference, in the conference he did yesterday, he had to get saved by Campbell several times. Yeah. And even like there was a number of times where they were specifically asking Leather a question, and then Campbell would jump and be like, I'll answer this one, sort of thing. So he's terrible at his job. And I honestly don't really know how he became a cop, because he strikes me as a very timid person, which is not exactly what you want in a police officer. Because
these people aren't police officers. We have to keep this in mind. These are bureaucrats. These are essentially politicians that are elected for life, right? That's what they do. They're bureaucrats. They're paper pushers. They're not beat cops. They don't know. Half of these people have never even been really active in the police force, really. They are just fast-tracked to leadership. They're not real cops. They're paper pushers, and their job is just simply to look after the RCMP and their own best interests.
Well, if that was why he's in the position he's in, he is terrible at it. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is sort of the last time we see Leather. I wouldn't be surprised if he's given, I don't know, an early retirement or decides to go after other options or whatever it is, because he's bloody awful at this job.
Well, what's your opinion of Campbell? To finish that up. What's your opinion of Campbell?
Campbell, he seems... it's not a very good maybe description or something, but there's something in his eyes that I don't trust.
Oh.
You know what I mean? You look at him and there's just full of deception and bad intentions, if you ask me. This guy, Campbell strikes me as someone who's dirty, very dirty. And actually, if I'm remembering correctly, the cop that we spoke to last week or so, the ex-cop, he ended up saying something about Campbell, about how Campbell was hated over in the Hamilton police force, and how Nova Scotia was getting thank you letters from the police force when they Campbell.
Kincaid.
Was it Kincaid?
Kincaid.
Oh, it was Kincaid. Yeah, you're right. It was the Halifax chief, right? Because we were asking about why they didn't let their cops wear red in order.
Right.
Yeah, okay, you're right. It was Kincaid. So my mistake on that. But yeah, no. But there's something about him that he seems like he's a very untrustworthy type of guy. Mm. I get really bad vibes from him.
I don't think anybody in this story that we're dealing with at the top is trustworthy. Mr. Campbell has his own issues and his own skeletons in his closet. I don't know who's picking the PR over there. I would say it's right up there with, writing Red Mazda down. They don't know what they're doing, because I would never pick Campbell. His ex-wife, who turned on the RCMP, former RCMP, became involved heavily in the Picton stuff, was going out against the RCMP, and they booted her out, saying that she was mentally incompetent. It makes the RCMP look absolutely horrible for firing people who speak out against them. And Mr. Campbell's own son is a convicted murderer, drug dealer. And I understand, people, there's mistakes and things happen and stuff like that. But Mr. Campbell has a very shady past as it is. I mean, you'd want to throw somebody out there, and second chances, obviously everybody should get them, etc. But I mean, his ex-wife had huge issues with the RCMP. And because of their treatment of her, she had a lot of PTSD and alcoholism issues, which she readily admitted. But rather than support her, of course, what do? Throw them under the bus. If you're going to damage the RCMP name, you're going under the bus. It doesn't matter who you are.
I personally think the RCMP doesn't really care too much when it comes to something like that. Like you said, it made it look bad for firing her. If you look into the RCMP and some of the shady stuff they're doing and what they allow to get away, that doesn't surprise me. They have a history of sexual abuse against not just female officers, but male officers too. It's rampant in that place. And there's physical abuse and mental abuse that goes on. Yep. It's almost like, what's that?
Bullying,
yeah. It's almost to the point where I don't really want to try and paint everybody with the same brush, but it got into the point where you think that anybody that actually goes into the RCMP and sticks it out and continues on, like sticks it out through their training and continues on, kind of makes you wonder about what type of person they are. If they are willing to witness all this and not speak out about it, continue working for an agency that's as corrupt as they are, and don't really seem to have much of an issue with it. So I don't know, but yeah, Campbell especially, there's something about him that is specifically dark. That guy has done some bad things in his life. That's the impression I got from him.
So I believe the lady with blonde hair is actually the head of the RCMP for Nova Scotia.
Lee Bergeron, I think her name was.
Whose microphone is like way over there.
Yeah, I had to turn the volume all the way up on my computer and all the way up on my my media player, and I could still barely make out what she was saying.
Yeah, no, I just finally fast forwarded through it because you can't understand anything that she's really saying.
She doesn't really say anything of relevance either.
But like is she remaining quiet because she doesn't want to take the fall here?
Probably. I think that's one of the things, one of the deals that's been struck with Campbell is I think Campbell is probably getting some nice kickback in order to go out and lie and be the lightning rod, if you will, for this situation. My guess is Leather didn't want to be the lightning rod, but because he's in the public eye, he's still got to make his appearances like he did yesterday. But Campbell, I think he's okay with that. He's sort of like, he's okay to be the bad guy in the RCMP, the one that everyone's going to turn to and blame for this situation, while the other ones get off scot-free. Because what'll probably happen if it gets that bad, they will, quote unquote, get rid of Campbell, but he's going to get a nice severance when he walks out the door.
Well, how much is he getting paid? I think he's getting $140,000 a year. His wife, who's two ranks below him, gets $120,000 a year. $260,000, $250,000 a year. And I don't even think you have to have particularly high education for the position that they're in. So
Not from what I know, because I remember when I was in either grade 9 or grade 10, we went to, it was like, oh, what's the fair called? I think it was like called Work for You or something. And it was just like for high school kids to sort of get an idea of like what sort of careers are out there you can go to. Yeah, no, RCMP, you really didn't need much to get into it. Like minimum requirement was a high school education. Now getting a university degree in like sociology or something was definitely a big help. But the minimum requirement was just a high school diploma.
Yep. I mean,
So-
I don't know if that has to apply to commission. I don't think commission you need one, because I've seen staff sergeants go up.
I'm pretty sure you probably people in their positions probably do have a university education, but
Okay.
just I think the bare minimum to get in and just be a beat cop would be just to have your high school diploma. I wouldn't expect you to move too far up in the RCMP unless you're willing to probably do what the type of thing Campbell does. You know, you're willing to look the other way and
They
play
get paid a
ball.
lot of money. They got to
Oh,
pay
yeah.
a lot of money too. I
Yep.
mean, Wortman's dad spoke about that a little bit with Frank, and he was very hesitant about saying it, but he was talking about how the police, there's definitely a lot of police in there that are just there for the paycheck and the easy money.
Yeah. No, yeah, I can believe that for sure.
Anyways, I've gone off topic here, so we should stick to the facts as you've got them down for
Okay.
your summary of the press conference. Please continue.
Well, we were talking about how they said that they were involving these other police agencies in this investigation of Wortman on the 18th and the 19th, but they refused to name the agencies. This also runs counterpoint to, let me see, it was an article out of, I think it was the CBC actually, back in the beginning of May. Who was called to help and who was not, the police resources behind the Nova Scotia shooting. And in there, they were talking about how they didn't get help from Truro. They didn't get help from the Halifax police. But, you know, they were trying to keep this mostly within the RCMP. And we've talked about that, about how they were pulling people in from New Brunswick. But everyone else seems like they were being kept in the dark with this situation. But now they're trying to claim as if these people actually played an integral role, were being kept in the loop, and were helping with the search. Which, you know what? Wortman probably would not have made his way through Truro as easily as he did if they were actually in the loop about what was going on.
Yeah, well, Amherst, and I don't know if I'd misread that or not, but I believe Amherst, Truro, and Halifax were specifically told by the RCMP, don't become involved. This is not your affair. This is RCMP, RCMP business, and we'll deal with all of this. So you stay the hell out of it. And you can clearly see that there's animosity going on within these the different police departments and the RCMP, because Truro is like, we'll do your job, get for $2 million less, like you guys suck, and Truro is the one who keeps the work, forwards that on to Halifax. They do the good work, the footwork. They do search the dental clinic, and then forwarded the pertinent information, which was relevant, to the RCMP, that told them specifically where to look for the guns in Portapique. And the RCMP chose to do zip with that.
Well, in this next point I'm going to make, I mean, I'll admit that hindsight is 2020, but with the direction that they kind of knew that Wortman was moving in, what they could have done is, Truro is sort of like, at least in that area, if you kind of look at it, leading from what's sort of the northwest side of the province down into the main hub, heading towards Halifax.
Sorry, the RCMP are coming to pick me up, if you hear that in the background. Anyway.
Perfect. I will expect them here in just a few moments. But yeah, judging by the way that he was going, they probably could have made a conclusion that he was going to have to at least pass through Truro. Now, if Truro was involved, the police force, if you look at it on the map, and I'll actually just share my screen real quick so that way you can see it. It's a lot better with the visual, although it's not difficult to explain. But if we kind of look at Truro here, so it's sort of the main hub to get from sort of the northwest side of the province down to like the main area heading towards Dartmouth and heading toward Halifax. Yep. But there's only a few veins that actually lead through the city itself or the town itself. So if they were aware of this, what they could have done is they could have set up their own checkpoints there in order to stop him from coming through, because they would have known at that point that they're looking for somebody who has they're looking for somebody who is driving a police vehicle, an RCMP vehicle. So they could have just told the RCMP, stay out of Truro. We will trap him here. So if any RCMP vehicles are coming through, we will stop them. I mean, we knew he drew through the main hub of the city. And again, hindsight's 2020, but they could have easily stopped him going through if they were kept in the loop. But it seems quite clear that they weren't.
No, and they didn't want them in the loop because that loose lips sink ships. Mm-hmm. Because then Truro can go off and talk, or Amherst can go off and talk in their official capacities or unofficial capacities and say, these are the things that we know. These are the things that we're aware of. Whereas you keep it in-house, you bring in 3.5 hours away, New Brunswick, you're going to bring in police officers from when you have Amherst, which is located right beside Portapique, I believe, and Truro, and he would have been, you've cut those arteries off. No, just let him go again. It was just, this is beyond a boondoggle. This is, I think sadly, some of these people that have made these official decisions, and I know that's a heavy charge to level, but I think that it could be argued that they're criminally negligent for some of these actions that did, but definitely civilly, and the department is definitely civilly.
No, I think that's a fair assessment, especially when more information is coming out, which is why I think we need why it's so important to have a public inquiry into this situation, because then it will determine the actions of the RCMP. They'll have much tougher time. Let me rephrase that. They would have to collaborate with this public inquiry a lot more than they would just some reporters asking questions or some YouTubers asking questions. So we could actually determine a lot better whether they actually did act properly or whether they were criminally negligent in this, as well as the main thing, like we've already probably spoken about. But the main thing about this is that they're worried about the connection they have back to Wortman. It's not even so much getting sued because they didn't do their job properly, whatever. The taxpayers will cover that. Yeah. But it has to do with, there was something going on behind the scenes between Wortman and them, and they don't want that to come into the public light. Let's see.
Yep. They don't want. There is clearly a lot of funny business going on, and they basically admitted, that was another one they admitted, which was the Halifax. I think it's Halifax that he has a friend with, Halifax Police Department, because he had a uniform also from Halifax Police Department, and they admitted more that kind of more about the relationships that were Mr. Wortman, who hates police, by the way. Of course, he's friends with police, right?
He's got family in the RCMP. He's got friends in the RCMP. He's got friends in Halifax. Got all of this police memorabilia and vehicles, which clearly he spent a crap ton of money on. But yeah, he hates cops, and he actually wanted to kill them.
Well, or crap ton of money, or, I know that's a, slightly some of this, but I think he was getting inside stuff. Stores were losing things, guns, cars, possibly uniforms, conveniently losing them, and he was happening to scoop them up. Finders keepers type thing. And they're just like, okay, never mind. I mean, 800 weapons or whatever they've lost. I mean, lost or had stolen. This they can't keep track of. They can't. Yeah, I mean, there is the divisiveness between they made mistakes and that they were negligent and knew this stuff. And I'm very much in the field that this was way beyond just making mistakes. They were either involved, very involved with Mr. Wortman for whatever capacity. I have no idea. I mean, was he a CI? I don't know. Was he getting stuff from the stores and friends like that? Was he, dealing drugs out the side of his car? The money thing never added up, ever. I mean, the more money, the more you look at him, the more money seems to bleed through, whether it's into his ex-wife or putting companies in the girlfriend's name or, etc.
Well, the other thing is that Tara just said that, RCMP and cops in those small towns are a lot more corrupt than they are in the cities. And it actually makes sense because when you kind of analyze it, is that if you want to buy off cops in the city, there are easily hundreds to thousands of cops that are involved in in a big city like, say, Toronto. So it's kind of hard to be able to buy off these cops. You can usually buy a few, maybe someone at the little bit higher up, like the chief of police or something that could, help you out. But in a small town like this, in small areas, you have less cops that are operating, which makes them much more susceptible. If you buy up 5 cops, you can own a good chunk of the province where you have cops that are not going to touch you. And I think this is exactly probably what was going on with Wortman, as I think he was probably had some of these cops, some of these RCMP officers in his pocket, and probably going higher up in the brass too, even quite possibly.
Yep.
And this is one of the things that they're trying to protect, is that they're trying to maintain the idea of the small town cop. I mean, this isn't corner gas where you have the 2 local cops that's known by everyone, is super friendly. This is real life where you've got cops that are easily bought and paid for. A lot of them even probably it's they have the impression that actually, did you ever watch the Starsky and Hutch movie, the one with like what was it, Ben Stiller and
yeah,
I don't remember it. No?
Comedies and I don't get along.
All right.
I'm sure people can tell that by my demeanor.
Well, in the very beginning of it, you got before they become partners, you got Starsky and Hutch, and you got Starsky, who's like, the diehard cop. He's like, I work a job as a cop in the city, and they pay me a damn good salary for it, and it's him chasing a suspect. The next scene is Hutch, and he's about to rob a convenience store with like some criminals. And he's talking about how the cops pay him a crap salary in order for him to do his job, put his life on the line. And this is why he does criminal stuff on the side. And this is the same sort of thing, I think, with a lot of these cops, is that they feel they don't get paid enough to go out every day, put their life on the line, even in a small town like this. And they're not getting properly compensated for it. So if someone's willing to offer them some extra money on the side to look the other way, what's a big deal to them? They all feel underappreciated by their local police force. So it doesn't really mean much to them to take a few extra dollars, look the other way, no harm, no foul. And, worst comes to worst, we'll pin it on some poor slob if ever it is required. I mean, the movie, again, I'm not trying to quote too many movies, but the one movie, Gangs of New York, which was that one was actually kind of eye-opening to how things operate. The cops have been bought off since the beginning of time.
Yep.
And this is exactly the same sort of thing that was going on in Nova Scotia. Many of these cops were bought off, were willing to look the other way, whether that's for Wortman or something bigger that was going on down there. Again, we don't know if he was involved with just theorizing, possibly drugs, possibly gun running, whatever it happened to be. And I think this is really what they're trying to protect. It's not so much about protecting them from lawsuits. It's about protecting their image and protecting who was actually connected back to this man.
I think it's both. because if you damage their image, and I think it's much more than just the fact about their contracts, which they're very afraid of losing. You know, and it's going to be harder for them to get their contracts now that they've got this new union, which I know Don Matheson has spoken out against and said, you know, this is absolutely going to wreck them because they have bad leadership. But they'll lose all these contracts, which means they'll lose a lot of money to police departments that are willing to not live out of the area, you know, not know the people. You know, Truro's probably going to be a little bit more involved. They'll lose these contracts, but also they'll lose the public face, which means if they lose the public face, they lose the power. If they lose the power, they can't come in and ask for ridiculous things like we need to know people's Groupons and, you know, dick pics and whatever else they're trying to scrape up on everybody and file away. I mean, the company that was running Project Wide Awake is apparently good enough for the Department of Defense, which gets $250 million contracts yearly. Apparently that's not enough for the RCMP. They need something much, much, you know, more thorough.
Well, again, like one thing that was said in that one Halifax Examiner article about the cracks are forming in the cone of silence. They end up, one thing that anonymous cop said is it's all about the money. And if the RCMP don't appear that they can look after the public in that sector, well, they're under contract, but from the local, I don't know if it's the local governments or provincial government, but then they'll hand that over to another police force, say Truro as an example, which means that's going to be a huge dent in the RCMP, both their image as well as their wallets.
Yep.
So this is another thing that they're trying to protect with their lies that they're spreading, why they can't admit their mistakes.
Yep. No, I think this is multifaceted. I don't think you can attribute it to just contracts or just power or just that the fact that they don't want to admit Wortman. I think this is all you know, encompassing. Maybe that's my complicated mind, but I believe that's the way I see it. I mean, they're looking for how best can they get what they want, and that involves you have to get rid of the story, conveniently destroying documents, etc. And I mean, this is not, again, there's so many lies that you can catch them in. It's unbelievable. And I was going to start sticking together little tweets. I got a little distracted today by somebody, but anyways, we won't talk about that. But you know, just little tweet bombs that we can drop on CBC, on, you know, RCMP, and just kind of tweet them out, let them know, well, maybe not all of Canada is quite behind you, and maybe there's reasons why, and use the actual evidence to support it. You lie, you cheat, you know, you ban reporters who ask good questions for, quote, disruptive behavior because you ask questions. You probably watch that CBC reporter. She's with the CBC, but I bet you she'll get banned. And the big media isn't covering this stuff because they're afraid of losing those contacts within the RCMP so that they can get the stories. But frankly, what kind of stories can you get from these people when they can't answer a single question?
No, it's a good point. The other thing too, and we kind of mentioned this a little bit earlier, was that the despite the fact that there were CBC reporters there, and you know, from all sorts of the big news agencies, at least on their YouTube channels, neither CTV nor CBC had this live stream. No. Unless I missed it, and I looked a couple times through them. But there was nothing.
I sent you exactly what they had.
Yep.
Because I went there, and I know it's just on my phone, which is unfortunate. I should be uploading this stuff. So this is what CPAC had. They had some French balls about COVID. Okay. Then we go to CTV's main feed was, where's that? The Falcon Cam. What the fuck is that? Canada's worst mass murder. And then on CBC, I was talking about this. It's making masks, and then they're going to cover. Where is it? Oh, right, Floyd stuff. His memorial service. Canada's worst mass murder, but we're going to worry about Floyd and the stuff down in the United States. Can't take care of your back door.
Well, at least giving some credit to CPAC, they did have the live stream on there, but I guessing from what you saw, it was not their main thing that they were promoting then.
Well, it wasn't. If they did, it came in late, because that was I took that after it had started.
Okay.
So I don't know, either I missed the feed. The only way I could locate the actual feed to this was the CTV one. And I think the global one, they did have it, but I don't know as they put it up right away. I mean, you can do that on YouTube. You can have it technically marked as live stream, but it's not necessarily actually live. If you do the right settings on it. So I don't know whether global did or didn't. You said you had it after the fact, right?
Yeah, because I was still at work when it ended up happening. So I ended up downloading it. At least according to CPAC, they said they did stream it yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not. I don't
know. Maybe they just broke in and discontinued the French stuff, which would be good, because CPAC is, funnily enough, the out of all of these ones, I've noticed CPAC seems to be the most honest. I don't know if that's the word really to use. They seem to be covering it the best, because they do cover the conferences. They don't seem to have technical errors and things like that. So, which is good, because that's the way the media should work. The media is there, just like the court system is there, to keep things like this in check. Mm-hmm. The RCMP get out of control. Well, the media reports this is why. And then people kind of make a backlash, and hopefully things change. But anyway, okay, please continue with your analysis.
So next,
listen though.
Next, we kind of already covered it. It was Campbell's talking about how it was the replica police vehicle, which he does within a couple minutes go to say that talking about Wortman and his retired police vehicles. But what I thought was kind of interesting was that he then goes on to say that Wortman did not pull over any of his victims using this police vehicle, that none of the people died. Now, again, there were people that were dead on the side of the road, which it's possible that maybe it's possible maybe he was just a drive-by, or like he stopped and shot them, but it seems unlikely to me. And the main reason that they would say this, that he didn't use the vehicle, is because, once again, they're running defense for themselves. If they let him get all these parts to mock up a police vehicle, and then they're having him run around using his vehicle to pull people over and kill them. So the reason that they would say that he didn't end up killing anybody is because it looks bad on them. Plus, it's going to look bad on any cop in the future, because, it's already set a precedent where people will fake an RCMP vehicle in order to commit murders, which is going to make people very nervous the next time they're getting pulled over by an RCMP vehicle. And if somebody has a gun, well, they might decide to pull out that gun in fear that they're actually about to be murdered and shoot an actual cop. So this is why I think they ended up saying that. I'm kind of blanking on this part, but I believe that when it came to Beaton and O'Brien, the two nurses that were killed, they were in a vehicle, weren't they, when they ended up getting murdered?
That's what everything I've read to understand, yes, that they were pulled over. And so, you know, on this, I would love to conduct an experiment with you. I'm just, give me one moment, but continue with the Beaton, because this one is rather very interesting, because they're trying to sever responsibility once again. Because if they can say, well, he wasn't in an RCMP car, he didn't really pull them over. You know, we're not negligent over here. You can't really look at that. This is what's going on. But please continue. I'll be back in one moment.
Okay, so we do know that Beaton and O'Brien were killed on the side of the road, and were in a car when that ended up taking place. Now, I find it very difficult to believe that he just did a drive-by shooting on them, because that probably would have been the way that it was described this whole time. But instead, it was that they were reporting that they were pulled over when this ended up happening. I think this is most likely the case. And then the reason that they're now changing the official story is simply because of how bad it does look on them. So they've lied a lot about the car that Wortman used, saying that it was a replica and that he got the decals from apparently this business that didn't know that he was not a cop and that they weren't actually making the decals for a cop. The warrants say that it was decommissioned police vehicles, and even Campbell ended up saying that himself, saying that these were retired police vehicles. So it's all been about trying to deflect the blame away as much from the RCMP in this situation. And the uniforms are one thing. The uniforms, like, again, even talking about the cop that we ended up having an interview with last week, you know, he said you can fake those uniforms because you kind of get a standard uniform and then you just apply the patches to it. But it's very hard to fake a police vehicle itself the way that Wortman did. So this is why they're trying to shift as much focus away from the vehicle itself. And they're trying to make it seem like it was nothing more than a mock-up. It's really not something that people should be focusing on, especially if it was a actual police vehicle, which at this point, between everything, aside for them saying that it wasn't a police vehicle, an official one, it was just a mock-up, all the evidence is pointing towards the contrary. The warrants are saying that. These are official documents that have to be brought before a judge. You can't lie in those.
Well, I don't know. There's a couple things in there I think they've been fudging, but okay. So even
if it was faked, why did they not fake that in the warrants? Then is another question that we could go to.
Okay, so I just want to do an experiment with you, and we can do it together, because then maybe my point. I think I've discussed it with you, but it's just interesting. Okay, so Beaton, to the best of my understanding, was on the way to work, so she was driving.
And that's why I think she had O'Brien. I think they were going to work together.
Yeah. So, all right. Now, let's flash over here quickly to... this is going to involve... You're going to use your screen as well here quickly in short order. Okay, so if we go down here, this is the global news. Latest timeline. This was based after the 28th press conference, which was the most detailed timeline, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we start off here. 10:08, Wortman arrives in Debert. He pulls over a car and kills the driver. He continues along Highway 4 and does the same to the second driver. The victims are believed to be Kristen Beaton and Heather O'Brien. Okay? And there we've got the photos. Now we have 10:16. The gunman is captured on video passing through Truro. He takes the Highway 2 to Millbrook. Now, how long is that in between? 10:08 to 10:16.
10:08, it's 8 minutes.
Okay, so and he's pulling over two people in the 8 minutes and shooting them. Okay. Do you mind using your Google Earth?
Give me 1 second to open it up.
Because you're good at that. You're a Google Earth man.
Mostly of it is just from doing this. I just kind of got better at it. Anyway, okay, Google Earth is open.
Okay, so now Yeah, I think you can do it with Google Earth, right? Okay, so let me just make sure I've got the address right. It's Prince Street, 945. Prince Street? Okay, Truro. So do Debert to 945 Prince Street, Truro.
All right, so okay, so we got that.
Hey, Boobs. What's going on, buddy?
Alrighty, we got it.
Okay, do you want to share your screen?
There we go. Okay, here we are.
Okay, can you give me a time? Maybe, I don't know if that does it in there.
Yes, it does. It is 21.1 kilometers, 20-minute drive heading east on the Trans-Canada Highway 2.
Okay, so if that's a 20-minute drive?
20-minute.
Okay, so just going back to my screen here, the time that they have is 10:08 to 10:16. That's 8 minutes. And in the 8 minutes, they're also saying he's pulling over at 2 separate occasions and shooting 2 different people in a period. And I'm going to give them, let's say, 2 minutes on each pullover, shooting somebody, running back to his car. I think that's fairly, fast. Because somebody's going to, be listening to music, then they see the lights, they're going to pull over, right?
Some people even just try and get to somewhere that's a little safer to pull over, They might turn off into a parking lot or something.
Okay, so that would leave 4 minutes. How long again did they say it was on your screen?
That was 20 minutes doing the drive from Debert all the way to 945 Prince Street.
What is the speed limit between there?
I don't think it actually says the speed limit, but I couldn't imagine it being that much. Even the highways there, 60 maybe?
I think it's about 80.
80? Okay.
Okay.
That's probably on the highway.
80. So how fast does he have to be traveling to do that? In 4
8 minutes.
4 minutes.
In 4 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh crap! You're putting me on the spot with my math. So that's at least twice. He's got to be doing like 3 times the speed limit almost. So we're talking it's let's say 80. It's 160. So he's probably going close to 200 clicks an hour.
Oh, he's going over 200 clicks an hour.
Okay. Which most cars, you're redlining at that point.
Yeah. Do you think it's possible?
No. Not even close.
No. Their timeline has so many discrepancies in it. Unbelievable. And yet I can't see how people in Debert who would be driving to Truro on a fairly regular basis could look at this document here and say, oh yeah, of course. I know how long it takes to get to Truro.
Even put this in a Bing search engine. Yeah, that one has it at 23 minutes if we're using the Bing map.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, any way you look at it, I do not see how he could possibly get from that area, from Debert all the way to Truro in the time frame that they're giving.
4 minutes. 4 minutes.
What was because they said it was between 10:16. What was the later time that they gave it between 10:16 and what?
Yeah, so 10:16 is the photo, right? This 10:16.
Oh, yes, that's right. There's a photo of it.
Is the Dairy Queen 9:45?
Yes, okay.
So that's the address. Because somebody in here did some great work and figured out a lot of these cameras were. They figured out where they were. So we know that it is a 23-minute drive normally to get there, and yet he completes it in 4 minutes. Are you out of your fucking mind? No car travels that. That's just absolute bollocks. You'd have people complaining, phoning, saying there's fucking cars speeding by me. He wouldn't be able to maintain control of the car.
The thing is too is that in this, we have the timeline that doesn't add up. But on top of that, sorry, I was getting some feedback from you. But on top of that, we have the fact that they just admitted in their own update that he pulled over Heather O'Brien and Kristen Beaton. And then Campbell goes on to say that he did not use his car to pull anybody over.
So what did he use? A broom? Was he flying on a broom?
Hey, you know what? That is a theory we have not analyzed yet. He could have been a witch.
He left the car. He must have left the car in Diebert and hoofed it with his 300-kilometer-an-hour feet. Because he's clearly driving from Truro. We have pictures of him. What in the hell was he driving before?
Well, if he did that on foot, we should have put him up against Usain Bolt. He could have fucking won us a world record.
Silver Tracker. Fucking goddamn Silver Tracker. The Silver Tracker is going to be their downfall. I tell you, it's the Silver Tracker. Okay, so
400 horsepower. Starmer.
Yeah.
400 horsepower. All right.
So continue on. The timeline falls apart a lot of places.
Okay, so he didn't pull people over apparently, and then they sort of, not very much, but they briefly touch on Stevenson was not rammed, and then they get into the police uniforms. And the police uniforms won't take long, so maybe we'll just touch on that. But pretty much what they ended up saying is that he had an official police uniform, but it didn't come from family and friends. Well, they may have said plural, but either way, they said that he had an official police uniform or uniforms. But they did reference that he had family in the RCMP and he had friends in the RCMP. They may have even, I'm blanking a little bit, but they may have even talked about Halifax. He had a friend there possibly too. But the point is, they said that he did not get any of these uniforms from these people, and that the investigation into where he got these uniforms is ongoing.
Yes.
So, I mean, at this point, I was pretty much willing to say that it was his... he did get the uniforms from one of these people, but if he didn't get it from there, then where the hell did he get his uniform from? Because this is not a mock-up that they're saying. They didn't say that he bought just a standard police uniform and put patches on it, but it was an official one, so... Okay. But then they're getting into this piece about Stevenson was not rammed. That it was a head-on collision. So,
did he say head-on collision?
No. He just said that she wasn't rammed, but this is sort of the line that they're drawing, because this is something that's changed a lot. It was a pit maneuver, but then it wasn't a pit maneuver. It was actually a collision, and then Wortman didn't ram her now. And then there was a brief exchange of gunfire between the two, which is interesting because, people, I believe you were the first one to do it, pointed out about how on these cars at Diebert, at Shubenacadie, there was no push bar on the front of one of the cars there. And we did see both video footage as well as a picture of him having a push bar on his car. So that's something they haven't addressed. A few minutes prior, yes.
And neither car there has a push bar.
Yep.
So what cars are there?
Well, at that point, I can only surmise that it was Stevenson and Morrison's car. That's what I would think. But nobody really seems to know. And this gets even more interesting when you start analyzing the new place where Morrison was in comparison to where Stevenson was.
Right. So I think this is what you and I were talking about on the phone, and that this one I haven't talked about yet.
Okay.
Which is interesting. If you can draw it out, that would be great.
Yes, I can. Okay, so at least for me personally, when I was hearing about where Morrison was, I originally thought it was here because the situation that went down with Stevenson was right here. So that would actually make sense because all he had to do is he shoots Morrison up here, proceeds all the way to Shuby, which is not far, and then engages Morrison right on the ramp there. But that apparently is not the case anymore. See, apparently Morrison was further south, which would appear to be right around they were saying right by the fire hall, which was here, I believe, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, so apparently he's doing right there. They said he was between the intersection there. So apparently this is where Morrison was. And he ends up getting shot by Wortman, and then soon after he ends up engaging with Stevenson over here in Shuby.
So he drives south, then he drives north. So he drives south to shoot Morrison, and then just was like, okay, I'm going to turn around and I'm going to drive north.
So he's engaging her over here, engaging Morrison here. Hold on, I'll just get both of these in view. It'll be easier. So he's engaging Morrison about right here, right?
Okay.
And then apparently he decides to head all the way back up to Shuby, and to which he engages Stevenson right over here. So he pretty much went down, then did a 180, headed back north just to engage her again. Who knows why he's heading back up north? Because at this point, he couldn't have gone to Gina Goulet's place because he ended up, according to them, he got the silver tracker in Shuby, ditched it at Gina. Well, actually, no, he ditched it at the school, the high school, the abandoned high school now. Treks it on foot to Gina Goulet's place, kills her, steals her Mazda to make it to Enfield. So leading up to this point,
sorry to interrupt. The silver tracker the silver tracker is not a proven thing. That's just somebody said that they saw a silver tracker in the parking lot. So let's leave the silver tracker out of it for now. He does go back to Gina Goulet's and he trades in the silver tracker.
Okay.
Which of course it's the silver tracker because the push bar is located on neither vehicle, which means neither vehicle is Gabriel Wortman's, but I guess he just left his car somewhere and then picked up the silver tracker. Okay, continuing on.
Even if, let's say, we took the silver tracker out of this entirely, let's just say for the sake of argument, he still had to go to Gina Goulet's place and take her car down to the Enfield. So at this point, he could not have stopped in at Gina Goulet's place before or after shooting Morrison. He had to engage Stevenson beforehand. And this is where things get interesting again, because the claim is that Stevenson was heading the proper way, on the on-ramp, off-ramp. So that would mean that she was heading this way and came up the ramp, and right around this point or so, roughly, is where she ended up engaging Wortman in the shootout, where she ended up getting killed. Which is weird because it doesn't make sense either way you look at it for her to take this route, because if she was heading up this way, she was either going to take this ramp and start heading north away from Wortman, or she was going to have to take the ramp, proceed on the 224 all the way down, to where Morrison was.
How do you get to Morrison?
You would have to take the 224 all the way down and then turn onto the 2 to
Stop.
make it there.
Stop.
Exactly.
No, stop. The 224 and the 2, it's an overpass.
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. The 224 runs over top the highway 2.
Yep.
That's a good point. Okay.
Yep.
So what only makes sense then is that she was coming this way, and then
Mhm.
she turns around, makes a 180, and starts heading back along the 2 towards where Morrison was.
So why was she driving away from Morrison when she was going to meet him? Because she was going to meet him. So she just came from him. She was traveling the distance opposite direction. She had traveled far away from him on the same highway that he was waiting on, supposedly. What the fuck are you talking about, man?
So, if we're going by what they're telling us, and actually I made a bit of a mistake there because I forgot it was an overpass. So Gabriel Wortman came down the 2, engaged Morrison there. Then he did a 180 and headed back up this way towards Shuby,
Yeah.
as Stevenson herself was also apparently proceeding this way. And they engaged them. She engaged him on the on ramp, off ramp there.
Because he was following her, don't you know?
Apparently, he went out of his way in order to engage her.
Why would she travel the opposite direction away from the person that she was apparently going to meet? Who would do that?
Yes.
Who would drive down south to just go and shoot Mr. Morrison? How the fuck do you know Mr. Morrison is waiting outside the emergency hall? You don't.
And even if we're going on the idea that this was pure coincidence that he ran into Morrison and he calls it in, why would he then turn around and try to engage Stevenson? Because if he called it in, she probably responded to be like, I'm so-and-so. I'm, right by Shubenacadie.
Because I'm traveling opposite the way to go and meet you, but don't worry about that.
But why would he then turn around just to go and follow her and attack her?
Because it didn't happen.
Exactly.
It's totally and utterly illogical. I'm hoping that your explanation of it maybe can get through to people, because if she was going to meet him, she would be traveling southbound on the 2 to go and meet him. She never would have gotten to that intersection. What in the hell is going on? Let's just say she was traveling the number 2. If you look at that intersection of the number 2, specifically the Shubenacadie turnoff, right? If you look at it, which exit is she having to take to get onto the number 2 again? To go southbound. Let's just say she was going southbound.
And even what we can do...
She's on the other side of the cloverleaf.
And even what we can do is we can color code it and just quickly go over it once again. Mm-hmm. So we've got Morrison, who's purple. We've got Stevenson, who is blue. And we've got Gabriel Wortman, who's red. So he went down from Shuby on the highway 2, all the way where Morrison was, engaged him here, and then pulled a 180, headed back up, all the way back up the highway 2 to engage Morrison, come across Morrison, and engage her right at the intersection of the highway 224 and highway 2 in Shubenacadie. So he literally did one big loop from south back to north just to attack these 2 cops.
Which, of course, he knew where they would be, right? Who travels down south to go and meet somebody you don't know? I'm not using the tinfoil. I'm not saying, oh, yes, he knew who he was going to meet or any of this nonsense. He had no idea. You wouldn't know where somebody is. Of course you wouldn't know. So this is balls. You don't travel just down south randomly to go and to shoot at somebody, randomly to go back up north the exact same way that you came from, to then go to get in an accident with a person who is traveling opposite direction from the person that they're supposed to go and see, because she's on the other side of the cloverleaf if she's going to meet him. But they slipped up by saying she was traveling the correct direction. If she was traveling the correct direction and was going to see her partner, she's on the other side of the cloverleaf. Because the only option is to go north on the Highway 2 or south on 224, which doesn't intersect Highway 2, which doesn't meet up with Mr. Morrison. This is unbelievably illogical. It's not just illogical, it defies logic.
No, you're absolutely right on that one. It actually absolutely makes no sense. And this is one thing that I think people should be focusing on with this. Like, if we do get in contact with journalists in this, is this situation right here. Because ridiculousness of it says everything. Because he how long would this take in and of itself to go all the way down here, engage Morrison, go all the way back up, engage Stevenson, and then make his way down to Gina Goulet's place?
Okay, so it's 8 to 10 minute drive going the speed limit from Shubenacadie down to the EHS station. It's 4 minutes each way.
Okay.
And then how long? 1.8 kilometers to Gina Goulet's house, which is actually Gina Goulet's house is up by the closer to the bend. But
okay,
yeah, it doesn't. But you have to, like, it's the gray cells, the logical mind. You can't predict where somebody is going to be. His goal is not to shoot, not using tinfoil. Let's not use the tinfoil, okay? Because I don't believe it. I don't believe that he's going down there to shoot, and you can't prove that. But what you can prove is that a person doesn't do this, and you can prove most certainly the RCMP are again lying by saying that she was traveling the correct direction of traffic. Because if she is, then she's not going to meet Morrison. So you're either lying about meeting Morrison or you're lying about traveling the correct direction. And then you throw in the logic, which is complete idiocracy. Then you throw on top of it the fact that now you've added another 8 minutes to the timeline. And before we were down to 13. So now we're down to 5. And in 5 minutes, he is going to complete the following things. He is going to shoot Morrison. He is going to go back up to Shubenacadie. He is going to get in a fiery accident somehow, or not fiery accident. He's just going to shoot Stevenson, get in an accident, some accident. He's going to get in an accident with her, shoot her, take her gun, start his car on fire, flag somebody else's car down, shoot them, get in their car, drive 1.8 kilometers down to Gina Goulet's house, shoot 2 dogs, shoot her, and kill her, to which I'm sure she's really excited and going to be letting him in, and it's going to be really fast. He's going to change his clothes. He is going to then steal her car, which of course he would know where the keys were, and then drive down to the big field and big stop. In 5 minutes? Are you out of your fucking mind?
Well, this is exactly it. They're not even really trying to cover it up in a proper way. I mean, how could they actually? You can't tell me that when they were figuring this out, they didn't map this out. I mean, in fact, from the updates, they did map it out.
They didn't map it out. They honestly didn't, because they weren't thinking. They weren't thinking that all they had to do was just say, but he fucked up. You see, they make mistakes. You let people talk and they will make mistakes. So he did. He, in his egotistical sense, you let egotistical people talk, and they will make mistakes when they're lying. And so he said, "Oh, traveling the correct direction of traffic. Really? Oops. You just made a severe error. Severe error. 5 minutes. It's all, you can map all of this out. If you know, somebody who is really good with computer models and that kind of thing can actually develop it. And once you actually see it in your own, see it for yourself. Yeah, you know, I'm going to go and drive randomly out of my way to go, because he clearly, and they basically admit that, right? What was his purpose? To shoot Gina Goulet, right? It just happened that Stevenson and Morrison were collateral damage. But how do you know where Mr. Morrison is? And why would you be targeting Mr. Morrison?
The way that, even if I look at it, again, I can only think that if he did engage Morrison, it would have been completely coincidental. But then it begs the question, why did he go that way rather than take the 224 to go to Gina Goulet's place? Why? Don't know. But even if we say that it's accidental, that he engaged Morrison there, he just happened to come across him, boom, 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 shoots him in the arm. He could then call that in which Stevenson would have responded. Why did he turn around and decide to go after Stevenson after this? He decided to turn around, just go back up. Okay, you know what? I know this other cop's on her way. I'll just go and shoot her up as well, No, screw it that I have things to do or people to go kill. I'm going to double back, head towards the RCMP and the cops that are following me, just in order to shoot up Stevenson. This is why, when I was originally talking about this, that it made more sense as to where where I was saying that I thought that Morrison was, because they were claiming, let me just put this away for a second. They were claiming that it was in the intersection of Highway 2 and Highway 224. So I was thinking right here, because it actually made sense. If he engaged him there, headed this way, then he could have actually gotten into it with Stevenson there, and it doesn't take long. It makes sense.
Driving the wrong way?
Like, you mean going on the using the on-ramp as an off-ramp, you mean?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, that is something that they would have had to address. But that's a small thing compared to what they've just presented us, compared to this map where they have him going south and then north just to engage them and then heading over to Gina Goulet's place. At least here, it's more plausible. But they've just completely screwed themselves by what they ended up releasing.
Yep. Now, how about you do another scenario, which is just you remove, just like the push bars, prove that he isn't there. He never was. It's two RCMP cars and friendly fire. Now, if he travels from the smoke shop straight to Gina Goulet's house, does that make sense? Does it fit the timeline? Yeah. Is it logical? Yeah. He's not doing anything. It's one easy route. It isn't this fucking doubling back, finding phantom people that you're predicting are going to be somewhere, doubling back again to go and get in an accident with somebody who you said was going to meet their partner, but clearly wasn't, because there was no fucking way they could go and meet their partner on either Highway 224 or going south or north on Highway 2. You can't. She would be on the other off-ramp if she had, but nobody would even do that. If you look at the Google Earth of the Cloverleaf there, right at the bottom of it, let's just say she just magically got a call, which of course she didn't, because she was going to meet the partner. right at the bottom there, wherever, what is it? What is the blue pin? All those blue pins you see at the bottom? No, up towards the top of the map. No.
Oh, so over here?
Yep.
Yeah, these ones here.
Okay, now if you do the satellite image, can you put the guy down there?
Yeah. Okay. So we got Martin Stop there.
She's going to want to go back this direction. Is that correct?
Yep.
Are there places there to turn around? Would you go onto
yeah.
a highway facing the wrong direction?
Hell, you could even just right here. You can just use this to quickly do a turnaround. And hell, you can pull off to the side of the road and just do a quick U-turn here. It's very easy for her to do a 180 in this section.
Yep.
I mean, even if we're looking at this and she didn't even like a little farther up, you could still do a 180 here. You may have to do a 3-point turn, but you could do it.
Yep. So their story is fraught with lies here. Just simply with one word. And this is why, I'm really fucking anal about words and things that people say. And he did say she was traveling the correct way of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So push bar, this thing right here, push bar, the 34 minutes where they're saying he committed all these atrocities. No, I'm sorry. The photographs, to which he also admitted, right, in the press conference. Oh, we have we had police cars in the area. How many of those surveillance photos do you think that were so wonderful and high quality and high resolution with date and time stamps on them, of course? How many of those cop cars can you tell is Mr. Wortman's cop car? That would be potentially one. Potentially in Debert. All the rest of them, you can't tell shit. And some of them, they've even doctored.
Mm-hmm. And we've gone over that before about, especially over, it's very obvious where the correctional officers are, that they doctored those pictures there in order to cut some things out. They blurred certain parts of that images. And I mean, even as for what went down in Shuby, it could have even been like we've kind of been going on the theory that this is Morrison and Stevenson's car. It may not even have been. There may have been a third officer that was involved that has been so far unnamed. And maybe he saw Stevenson's car, or Stevenson saw him, thinking it was Wortman, and engaged it, and they got into a shootout with each other.
Sure, CERT. Look at the CERT vehicle there. Or sorry, it's the serious. No, not CERT. The ERT vehicle, the SWAT vehicle there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And they're dragging bodies around. People are saying they hear shots. Cars aren't on fire yet. So we know the time frame, right? And there's no fucking silver tracker anywhere to be seen. There never has been. The silver tracker, which was mentioned in the timeline, way somewhere else at the same time, which he's driving around for 18 minutes. No, the RCMP say he only traveled 1.8 kilometers in it. No, like, I don't know how to communicate this stuff, but I know here it makes sense. But there is some way to communicate this in a fashion that other people, it's like, the fuck, man? Are you fucking serious? How you're traveling the wrong direction, but you're saying that you're meeting up with this person? Like, what are you talking about? No, it's lies, all lies. Because they're trying to cover up the fact that they murdered their own officer. They're trying to cover up the fact that Mr. Morrison was wounded. And I guarantee you, he's a Belkadir, he's on a beach in Tunisia, and you'll never fucking hear from them again. This is what they do. This was the 2 people that were arrested at the Quebec mosque that they never spoke of the next morning.
This is Jesus Campos from the Las Vegas shooting, the security guard.
Bang. You don't have to go into 2 shooters, all kinds of other stuff. You can just prove the lies. And once you can prove the lies, then you can take them to court and say, excuse me, now I want you to sit down and I want you to answer for me, looking at these pictures in front of a jury, in front of all kinds of people. Why is there no push bar? Show to me where the push bar is. Produce the vehicles, because we want to look at them.
At this point, the vehicles have probably been taken to a scrapyard and have been turned into a freaking cube. There probably is no vehicles left in order for them to analyze.
Oh, I would say that's World Trade Center metal getting recycled.
Absolutely.
And all of the people disappear. And all of the witnesses shut down. And Clinton Ellison, just so that that's the interesting other little side note here I wanted to add tonight, was Clinton Ellison has decided to sue Wortman. Mm-hmm. I mean, that was older news, but I missed it. Clinton Ellison now suing Wortman? I thought he...
Thought he discredited himself, but now apparently he's back in the game.
There's going to be some lawyer out there that is going to have a fucking heyday with the RCMP. I would love to be in court and just run game on them, because there is no way you can answer these questions. You cannot answer about the red Mazda. You cannot. And every time we say something, they come back with something to counter it. I think, there were 2 last night? Because the accident was one of them. Mm-hmm. We said, well, what the fuck are you talking about? Head-on collision. You can't see damage on one of those vehicles. Why is there only one vehicle that's heavily damaged? Oh, the heavily damaged vehicle is Mr. Wortman's. Hello? You just said Mr. Wortman's, the front end of his car, which has a push bar on it, is crumpled. What the fuck are you talking about? I would like to go and take a push bumper car and somebody replicate that accident where you have that, because you can't. You'd have to ram into a fucking wall, and there still would be a push bumper on the ground, maybe.
It probably wouldn't be difficult to hire some stunt drivers on a closed course that would be willing to reenact a accident like that. If we could afford it.
They can't. There's no push bar on the ground. This is all lies. And people, we see some of it. There's more and more of it that we see every day, the more that we dig through it. And I guarantee you, if we sat down and we did a timeline from beginning to end, and you have every fucking different scenario of every timeline that they have given you, which is scant at best. Oh, believe us, 5 times we're going to give you for a period of 13 hours. When we have surveillance footage all over the province, but we can't produce any. Please give us your cell phone cameras, which we will never return. Media, which doesn't ever want to say anything, wants to bury the story because maybe they'll lose contacts and future interviews with the RCMP, to which they never answer anything anyway. Like Don Dunphy fucking type inquiry, where they sit there and the guy lies all over the place. And he's saying, just trust us. ACERT's report into us is fine. ACERT's report said, what? Oh, that's right. The video equipment didn't work for the person that you were interviewing for a murder. The video equipment didn't work. and you didn't do monitor notes, meaning you're a completely inept police department, or like the coroner who took the photographs at that scene was like, that tote box wasn't there. Suddenly, Mr. Dunphy has a gun. And now Mr. Smythe is getting charged with obstruction. And what was it the justice said who oversaw the public inquiry? Dead man can tell no lies. Or dead man can't speak. That was it. Quote unquote, dead man cannot speak. Morrison's car, Stevenson's car, ERT, he was never there. He had a mission. He only wanted to kill fucking Gina Goulet because that's the only one, at least publicly. Publicly, it may come out at a later point, but publicly, no tinfoil. Publicly, that's the only person he had a motive to go and kill. And he clearly was killing people he had motives to kill.
Nope, you got it bang on. And then again, like when it comes down to what happened at the Enfield gas station, the fact that these cops just happen to pull up at the exact right time and in order to gun him down, and the witness statements there seem to confirm that they pretty much jumped out of their cars and just opened fire on Wortman, which is why my theory is that he had at one point had gotten in contact with the RCMP and pretty much said, like, I want to turn myself in. And they pretty much gave him the old, come on in, we'll go lenient on you. We'll make this maybe not go away because you can't make that many bodies go away, but we'll make sure, we can do everything we can for you. They told him to meet him somewhere, which happened to be at the Enfield gas station. And then they rolled up on him. They didn't know he was driving the Mazda. They didn't know that he was out of his police uniform. Yet somehow, some way, immediately knew it was him and just happened to be at the right place at the right time in order to gun him.
Sorry, continue. I'm not meaning to steal your thunder. You got it, brother. You got it.
Well, then it seems like there's some other evidence that may have been forged in there. Again, if they're trying to claim that there was a shootout that ended up happening, but they pulled up and they gunned him down right then and there, and yet there were shell casings in the car as if he returned fire, but it seems like they rolled up on him way too quickly. Again, this is not the way you conduct this. Unless it is immediate, like you are going in and the guy has a gun drawn on you, which doesn't seem to be the case, then you can open fire immediately. But when you have the opportunity, you give them a chance to surrender. If they don't surrender, that's when you gun them down. But if they just moved in immediately and gunned him down, then they can get in a lot of trouble for that, because that technically they can be brought up on murder charges. So,
boom.
So they manipulated this. My theory is that they manipulated the scene. They planted some evidence there, such as the shell casings inside of the car, and now they're covering up what ended up taking place at that gas station.
Yeah, plausible deniability. Yet if they were to produce that ERT vehicle, there's no bullet holes in it.
Mm-hmm. It was just in his Mazda, or Gina Goulet's Mazda, but that's the only bullet holes we could see.
And then he was using an RCMP weapon. So it's going to be RCP issue ammunition that they're going to find in there. But the man with the yellow jacket told the truth. He told the truth. They just pulled up, opened fire on him, shot him straight through the windshield, unannounced. Murder. They just committed murder. And they knew that he was going to be there. You're absolutely spot on. And then all of the fucking photos that we saw with all these guys with fucking guns pointed at a dead man. He was dead. Dead. Because there was only two people that like in that vehicle, a canine officer and an ERT member.
And the thing is, too, is
there's all kinds of police cars. Sorry.
Well, the other thing I was going to say is they would have known if he was dead. I mean, I understand taking precautions to make sure that, like, he is absolutely dead. But when you're shot, your body goes limp. which means that if he's in the car and he's shot, one of two things is going to happen. Either A, his body's going to go limp and his head's going to go like this, or if he has it slightly backwards, it's going to go like this. Either way, he's clearly not moving. He's not looking at the cops, which means that they know that he was dead, which gives them the perfect opportunity to pull this stunt of, where we're behind our vehicles, we're running to cover, we're making sure I'm standing on a minivan pointing up, over, down onto him. Perfect time to manipulate this evidence if that's what they did.
That's why you don't see any photos from the other side.
Exactly. Yeah.
There were a couple, but they're very hard to fucking find.
That's why the camera footage hasn't been released.
But of course, see, if he wasn't murdered, and he was, I'm not taking away from what this man did, because what he did was horrific. But if you don't murder him, he might have fucking told the truth about what happened in Shubenacadie.
Mm-hmm.
That's a problem you got to get rid of. So you murder him and he can't speak.
Bang on. And that's exactly what this led up to. Why Wortman had to disappear. And who knows what other information he had on the RCMP. If that got made public, that would have done a lot of damage to them.
Holy shit, yeah. He would have come back. He would have told about the uniforms. He would have told all the connections, where he was getting his money, everything.
He would have sung as loudly as John McCain did in a Vietnam prison camp.
Yep. Traitors, liars, murderers. And this is what you have for your police department. And I don't think, I know that's liable. That's a libelous statement potentially, but I don't think, somebody could legally, they could have a case even to say that's liable. Come after me. Fine. Come after us. Prove it. Because as soon as you fucking take me to court, and that is, I'm stating that on the record, as soon as you take any of us to court for anything, if you were potentially even thinking that way, I'm going to depose the shit out of all of you. You will never know what hit you.
Just a reminder, Seamus comes from a family of lawyers, so good luck.
We can get this, and we can get the truth out there. And if we do, that will be a blow that not only will clean up potentially the RCMP somewhat, it will throw people in positions of power in this government, in this corrupt fucking political system that we have, because it doesn't matter what fucking party, these people are not operating for Canadian citizens. However, if they know that citizens will hit back, as in sue them, lay private citizen charges against them for criminal offenses, it's suddenly like they suddenly have a boss again. And it's not the special interest groups, it's not the other powers that be in this world, but it is what a true democracy is supposed to be.
Well, here's to our future lawsuit.
I really, and this will be an interesting test. It really will be an interesting test to see how many people, because last night there were 500 some odd people that watched that show. There are people that are watching. I know this is getting rebroadcast on other people's channels. So there's people watching. It seems as though the RCMP may be watching. Let's see how many people were willing to put their money where their mouth is in terms of hiring a lawyer once this is organized in enough of a fashion. But I think first is organize it at least concisely. A few quick points. that people can just have the question in their head, Bing, and drop it on everybody. Government, all the media. It's not that hard, you know. It's a lot of typing, I'm sure, to figure out and scanning around to find people's email addresses, etc. And drop the few points on them. And somebody's going to bite. Somebody out of that is going to bite. And I'll tell you, you'll terrify the shit out of the government.
Well, we already have a couple names at least that we think would be willing to pick this up. If we were to present the evidence and just package it nicely for them and send it off to them, then yeah, absolutely, there would be someone that would be willing to bite. I could easily see someone from like maybe Frank's magazine would want to get in on that, or even like someone in the Halifax Examiner. They've been asking some good questions over there. And even if these aren't huge publications, they still got more pull than you or I. So it's actually something they'd be willing to pick up on.
Yep. And that means more than 500 people.
Mm-hmm.
And suddenly now you've got a few more Canadians and a few more questions that have been asked and a few more pockets that might be willing to donate just to the cost of one lawyer. Because if they're not going to do a public inquiry, we're screwed. And even if you do the public inquiry, Don Dunphy's public inquiry was a fucking joke. That poor man was murdered by the police.
Mm-hmm.
And the RCMP helped to cover that up. They knew about the Indigenous women out in in Picton, pig farming. Mm-hmm. Nonsense. One of their own members, Mr. Campbell's ex-wife, turned face on them and said, "You guys fucked up. We fucked up." She was a cop. She was an RCMP member. And she was said, "I will testify for the women against the RCMP." Oh, what happened then? Well, we got to get rid of her. She's crazy. She has PTSD. Sounds like Clint Ellison.
It's funny how all these cases are very similar, aren't they? The more and more you look into them, the actions that are being taken, the cover-ups that are done, they seem to fall right in line. The same tactics used every single time, and it's worked up till now. But I think this will be one situation. Hopefully this will be one situation where finally the tables turned and they'll finally have to answer for what they've done.
Yeah. Yeah. You can't run around. I don't care. Like, that's the society that we live in. We believe in law. And law is supposed to regulate all citizens and applies to all people equally, whether you be in the police department or it's just you and me, you know, or anybody in here today. The law applies to everybody equally, or to Mr. Trudeau. You can't, to anybody, Mr. Harper. You can't fuck with that. It's not supposed to be corrupted. And at its core, good people don't allow that to be happening. The system has got us this way because we are inundated with lying is just normal. I mean, the fact that you can, if you sit back and you just think about that for a moment. Yes, the welding shop is fake, by the way. I saw that comment just up there. No, I lost my point.
Your memory's so good and so bad at the same time.
Oh, my memory, like in my personal life, you don't want to know. It is, no, it's really bad. I don't remember my girlfriend was like, "When's my birthday?" I'm like, "I don't know." I know what month it is, I think.
Wrong thing to say.
What's my phone number? Yeah, that was my point. Is that we, you know, if you just even sit with that thought and you're like, it's humorous to think, oh yeah, ha ha ha, all politicians lie. Ha 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 ha. Innately at the root of that, there's a very serious problem. because there's nothing humorous about that at all.
No.
And yet we have been desensitized from so much time, so much corruption, so much trauma that we actually think that that's funny. It's funny to lie. It's funny to steal. It's okay. It's just part of normal business. It's part of normal society. I don't know what society. Maybe I'm just living on a different planet, but that's not my society. That's not what I envision, kids growing up in, because it's only going to get worse, and it only does get worse.
Well, there was actually a point where a lying politician would get voted out of office. Now it's just par for the course. Now we look at every single politician, say they lie, so I'm going to vote for the one that seems to be more on my side, the one that seems to tell the truth at least the most, even though these days that means next to none. And yeah, no, everything you just said is bang on. It's unfortunate, but we're at a point now where we're at a point now where it's so regular. I mean, even something such as lying about who you are when you're dating someone is completely normal and acceptable. In fact, there was a time where people would get, upset when they found out how somebody lied to them, whether that be their looks or what they do for work, whatever it happened to be. Doesn't really matter anymore.
No. Dating websites, people are like, oh yeah, it's normal. That's not my photo. That's somebody else. I'm like, what are you talking about, man? Or I'll date lots of people. How can you spread your heart and your mind all over lots of people? You can't. You can't care about lots of people the same.
No, they're spreading their genitals across lots of people.
Yeah, their herpes and all kinds of other nonsense. And it's like rife. YouTube is telling you polyamorous relationships are great, and you got to change. Maybe today you feel like a bed sheet, maybe tomorrow you're a tranny. I don't know.
I'm supposed to have 2 wives? Screw that, man. One's good enough for me.
One is enough work. Somebody said was it about the memory. Where was that? I think it was Ozzy was saying something about memories and men. Oh yeah, here. And I don't know. My mind is kind of a convoluted mess, but I think it's because it has a purpose, and its purpose might not be remembering somebody's birthday or somebody's name exactly, or to return a phone call. Maybe it's just to spread a message that just like you, just like people here,
Hey, Ozzy, you want to know what's the scariest phrase you can ever say to your wife or boyfriend? Do you know what day it is? Tuesday?
I don't know what day it is half the time.
No, me neither. No, me neither.
That's not. What the fuck is that important? Is that really important in the scheme of things? No. I mean, it's just going. It is like, I look at the animal kingdom and I think of biology and how animals morph and change and adapt, and it's steadily getting better and better and better. And that's the progress that all animals, because we are an animal too, all animals are supposed to do. We're supposed to get better, but we just get worse and worse and worse. And then we're told that actually it's getting better. And I guarantee you there's going to be somebody who's going to come in here and they're going to say, we got the solution for you. And people will buy it because they're so desperate. Look at how desperate people are now. It's fucking sad. Really sad.
Well, a good example is exactly what ended up happening with COVID. They ended up presenting this disease that was going to kill you, and everyone had no problem with selling away everything, every rights that their country was supposed to stand for. They had no problem with being told you couldn't interact with a certain amount of people. They had no problem being told you have to stay indoors. There's no problem being told that we're going to be monitoring you in order to make sure that you're healthy and safe.
Mhm.
It was a whole huge social engineering operation, and nobody batted an eye.
No, but you see this apathy that people have, and that's why I don't like things like Q. Q is good for waking people up a little bit to look at things differently and maybe think with their mind outside of the box. Q is horrible by saying just trust us. It's the same exact fucking thing again. Just trust us. The politicians will take care of you. Your teachers are going to teach your kids. They're going to raise them. No, it all is about personal responsibility, and it starts right here with me.
The best description of Q I heard came from Devin Stack from Blackpilled. He started off by he did a video where he was talking about two things. One was Q, and the other was talking about I don't remember the exact name of the program, but it's something to do with Bitcoin. It was this program, this group where you gave them your money, your Bitcoins, right? And they said that they had a fail-proof system where you give them your money, you can't take your money back out, but you'll keep doubling your money. It'll just keep going up and up and up. It can't fail. There's like an algorithm, yada yada yada. And then, like any Ponzi scheme, it eventually collapsed, and people put in their life savings. They were ruined by it, and it was just the fact that all this trust they had built on it was destroyed. So he does this whole long video about this, about how people put their trust into something. It destroyed them, and then they'll never trust the system again. He says, now let me talk to you about Q, or I guess I just did. And the whole point is that there's going to be people that are following that want to trust this, trust the plan. We're going after these politicians. They're going to be arrested, yada, yada, yada. But when it never happens, people are not going to trust that anymore. The next time someone comes around talking about the same exact thing, people aren't going to trust it because they'll say, do you remember Q? Remember what happened with Q? And I mean, for me too, the fact that Q said that we're going to save Israel and the Zionists for last tells you everything you need to know. That should maybe not first, but it should have been pretty high up on the priority list. But they said, no, we're going to save that for last. They still to this day are saying, trust President Trump. He's doing everything he can for you.
Yeah, what has he done? What promises has he upheld? Zero.
Especially recently. He actually did try and do some things when he first came into office, but that quickly fell by the wayside.
I think they were token. He was a pocket person from the beginning.
Yep.
Look at who he appointed. They're all bankers, Rothschilds.
All you had to know was Wilbur Ross. Secretary of Commerce, was a agent for the Rothschild, helped bail out his banks in the 80s.
Yep.
I can understand why people bought into it, but there's no excuse now.
Of course, because people are desperate. They want something different, and they're reaching and grabbing at anything. Anything's better than what I have right now. I'm getting poorer. My life is collapsing. My society is getting more and more violent. My kids are going completely AWOL and materialistic and turning into I don't know who they are anymore, and the school is telling them what way they have to be, and we've got to wear pink, and no. Unbelievable how we have let this get away. And I know if I die tomorrow, I will feel extraordinarily guilty for my part in it, because if I'm not willing to change it myself, then and change myself to make the difference. But the apathy is unbelievable. People can't hit likes. People can't talk to their friends about things. People can't hit share. People can't go to protests. Oh yeah, I'll be there. I hate all this stuff. What the fuck is everything? Oh, sorry, I'm busy. I got a fucking go and slave away for my mortgage, and it'll just get worse and worse and worse.
See, the thing is, though, is that excuse about like I need to go to work, I need to pay my bills, pay my mortgage. That is at least acceptable. But there's people who have the time, that have a day off or something, that can't even make it out in those times. So it's not even that they have an excuse like I have to go pay my bills, because I understand that one. I believe me, I do.
Yeah.
But there's people who can't even make the time when they have the time.
When they have the time.
And you know, the amount of people that I know that say they don't keep up to date with current events or politics or the news or anything because it's too depressing. I know way too many people like that.
Well, it is traumatic, though. I mean, we're getting inundated with trauma. That's very much part of the system. Keep telling you everything's fucking horrible. You start beating people down. They've been beating us down forever. You know? We can pick a couple of these things and go after them and deal with them on our own. Yeah, like this one. You know, it's not like we can save every child on this earth and blah, blah, blah right now. You have to start somewhere, though. I don't know. And these, I mean, that business about like the channels that talk about self-sufficiency and running away from society, I think that's just another fucking cue. You're a coward if you do that. You're a fucking coward. I think being able to take care of yourself is one thing, but going and hiding off in the woods, who are you defending? Who are you taking care of? Me, 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 me. That's it. You're continuing the problem. That's why YouTube loves those channels and they fucking recommend them.
You turn away from the problem, it doesn't stop them. In fact, it only just delays it towards where you are.
Let's
So
put
they
our
better
head up
tackle
our
the
ass
catches.
a little bit more.
What's that?
Let's put our head up our ass a little bit more. Let's go get some more Ritalin and drugs and get drunk and ignore everything that's going on. Go to a football game. Pretend nothing is happening. It's absurdity. You wouldn't tell a child to do that.
Well, this is also another thing that, to an extent, it sort of applies with what you were just talking about. But the amount of people that, not necessarily I know personally, but like even like the ones who are prepared to leave the country, you know, like I've heard a few like that who are like apparently diehard Canadian patriots, and yet their whole plan is to eventually move to the US because they don't like the direction that the country's going. That's not really helping anything. I mean, the other thing for me personally is like, no matter how bad this country gets, this is where I'm going to live.
Yep.
I said before, and I said again, I was born a Canadian, I have lived a Canadian, and I will die as a Canadian. For better or for worse, whether that's 50 years from now or whether that's tomorrow, this is my home, this is my country. So I'm not going anywhere. As tempting as it can be to just move to the US and, you know, go live in a state like Texas or something like that, be great. But I'm kind of abandoning my home. I'm abandoning my family. I'm abandoning my friends. I'm abandoning my countrymen. And I've always had the comparison that it's like your country's like your home, and the people inside are kind of like your family or your friends, you know?
Yep.
You got to look after them, and you're not doing anything by running away from it.
No. Dogs don't shit in their own bed. There's a very good reason.
That's a good description, I suppose.
Well, there's a good reason they don't do it.
But at the end of the day, we want to have a better country, a better society. And the only way to do that is to fight for it. And whether that means that's, even if that's a losing battle, it's better to say that you fought for it than to say that you did it, to say that you ran away.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's better. This is like the expression to, it's better to have lived and loved.
Then, but better to have loved and lost than never to have loved at all, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm, you know, this is why you and I are good friends, because there's no fucking way I quit fighting. I don't, you know, and there's days and I'm sure everybody here has them, where they're just like, oh, fuck it, And I get like that. I'm like, you know what? I could just run out to the ranch and I can stay out there. They're not going to find me for a while. Well, who's that taken care of?
And let me guess, you did take a year off YouTube, which is fine. It's fine to take a break and everything. But I guess you've thought of permanently quitting more times than you can count, right?
Well, and I didn't take a year off.
You just took a year off from making videos, but you were still researching and everything. Yeah.
Way heavier. I mean, this is to me, this kind of research is actually pretty lightweight.
I bet some of the things you've come across.
Oh yeah, you should see like that notebook is fucking nothing, man. Nothing.
I do enjoy going through it though.
Well, I got all my stuff to file away still, but that we'll get to that bridge when it's appropriate, and I know God will show me that. But this one right now is the most appropriate, and God, for whatever way, people can call me crazy, whatever, that's fine. But it presented itself this way. Tara is our friend. It hit really close to home. And I don't let my friends down.
No, I know exactly how you feel. And because that was the thing with Tara too, is that, I've heard, I don't even know how many mass shootings I've heard of, or, families that are ripped apart by this. And it's like, to a certain extent, you remain detached from it. It's horrible. You feel terrible for the people, but it's like, at the end of the day, I'm going to bed and I'm not really thinking about it more. But this is one situation where it's like, I have to think about it more. I have to do something because it was somebody that we knew personally, a friend who was personally quite horribly affected by this. She may not have been one that was targeted in this shooting. She may not have been one that was physically injured, but I can only imagine what she went through, what she's still going through.
Oh, and I've talked to her, and she said, like, obviously I talked to her, but I talked to her the other day, and she said, I don't think I've dealt with this at all.
I don't blame her for not wanting to.
I don't even think it's really hit me. And I'm like, and I know those phone calls will come.
Yep. Sooner or later. Yep. It's just, it probably will be when she's not expecting it. It's just going to be one day, maybe at home, and just, that'll be it.
Yeah. And where is everybody going to be then? They're going to be focusing on fucking some riot somewhere else, or, they won't be there, Somebody's going to have to answer the phone.
Mm-hmm. No, you're absolutely right.
It'll be us, right? So, but that's what friends do. That's what friends do. So until this is resolved in some way, I do fear that it's gonna slip away. I really do. But you can't quit. I never quit. You're not a quitter either. And I know people here aren't a quitter. And I think that's why so many people have been watching. And I bet you dollars to dog nuts. Seriously. YouTube is fucking lying. Lots more people are watching.
No, I believe you on that. They've proven themselves that they're willing to manipulate the numbers. They're proving that they are, like in live streams, that they're reducing the amount of people, like what are actually watching compared to what they say that they're watching. They shadow ban videos. They delete videos. So yeah, no, I have no doubt that YouTube is lying too. I mean, the fact that the RCMP update, an hour long, dry as it can be, had 500 viewers on it, that says a lot.
Yeah.
Normally, they would have, what, a handful, a couple dozen maybe, at best. But these articles are still getting shared. Yep.
6 months ago. Yeah.
It was about 2 weeks ago.
And that was the day of.
Yeah, it was. I remember you sent me those photos. You're like, why am I getting an update for a video 6 months ago?
I know you just made it. Of course I get late. right? But
Well,
whatever.
hell, I didn't even know you were alive yesterday until like, I don't know, 2.5 hour mark. I actually I refreshed my YouTube and I was scrolling through and there was Little Gray Cells live. I was like, I didn't know anything.
I'm almost tempted to touch something else, which is the fucking infighting, and drama, but I don't know. I'm hoping people will put that one to bed. I know that there's fucking dis ops running too, which is really pissing me off. And they're gonna, you know, I know we were talking off there about that. So, you know, and that's par for the course. It's always like that. You got to get people in more divisiveness. Keep fucking fighting and splitting it down because it'll destroy that unity behind one cause. You attack people with ad hominems and getting people off in silly arguments and shit, rather than staying eye on the prize. What do you really want here? What do you want?
I've seen that sort of tactic used in countless different communities and countless different investigations before. Yeah, no. This happened in Las Vegas, for instance. This was something. There was plenty of people that were coming out, and one of the main keys too is to try and poison the well as much as possible.
Yep.
Have people come out and just say the most ridiculous things in order to downplay it.
Yep.
So this actually a good example of that was in the WikiLeaks release when it came to whole Pizzagate thing. Is the fact that they turned that into something absolutely ridiculous that to this day is still used as a derogatory term, even though there was actual evidence in what ended up happening with Pizzagate. They suddenly turned this into, it's now, if somebody says, oh, you're just a Pizzagate conspiracy theorist, it's a derogatory term.
Sure. More labels.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta label people. You're a white supremacist, you're this, you're that, you're a homophobe, you're a... No. That they're putting labels on people, by and large, that, because most people know all of that shit is garbage. There isn't really any reality to it. Jesus Christ, you want to peel through the RCMP's history with quote, terrorist organizations, white supremacist organizations, etc. They are agent provocateurs all over the place. Are they agent provocateurs here? Absolutely. Do they cause shit intentionally? Yeah. Mr. Big, 100% real. They're always inciting, causing problems, trying to get it to provoke people. It's like dropping the bricks off in front of Louis Vuitton, or the box of guns in the alley in Chicago.
Yep. I was just about to bring those two cases up. You beat me to it.
Yeah. Well, sorry.
Ah, no worries.
Pretty slow.
But yeah, no, in absolutely every of these situations, there's always a diss-up. And at some point, I always think I'm going crazy. Am I just seeing conspiracies everywhere? And then something like that pops up. And I realize, no, I'm not actually crazy. These people have their hand in absolutely everything in order to try and make the situation worse.
Yeah. And that's evil.
Yes.
True evil exists in this world. True evil is the playing with kids and fucking with people's minds and bankrupting people.
Nope, you're absolutely right. They try and cover up absolutely everything. I mean, even the things that people think are now that are crazy turn out to be true. And one good example of it is the did you ever read the Finders documents that the FBI released? I don't know, like October.
No, I don't believe I did.
I'll send that to you, man. Now, there is a very interesting read. Apparently, the whole satanic scare from the 80s wasn't that crazy, because this goes into that. Oh, crap. I can't remember what it is. Maybe I can quickly find it. But there was also...
What was that FBI guy? Ted Gunderson. He's a fucking interesting cat. Since you're talking about 80s satanic stuff. Ted Gunderson.
I recognize the name, but I can't place him.
Ted Gunderson. Oh, they tried to fucking...
There it is. Okay, so let's see here. Hold on. Where is it? There was a back in like the 90s, there was a school. There it is. McMartin Preschool. So I think this was an accident that ended up coming into in the finder's document. I don't think it was supposed to be there, but there was a court case back in like the early 90s about this school, the McMartin Preschool, in which the students were claiming that they were being sexually abused by the teachers there. And so like the teachers were put on trial, like the whoever it was, like the director of the school is put on trial, and eventually they came to some conclusion in the trial where these people were found not guilty, and these kids had some sort of collective like psychosis where except the thing is a lot of the things that the kids were saying were now this got released just in 2 pages in the finder's document, where there actually were tunnels underneath this preschool and led underneath several classrooms. And then they found like in these tunnels, they found like what appeared to be animal bones, like that were being like sacrificially, like the animals. What's the name of the school? McMartin Preschool.
McMartin. I think that Gunderson was tied with it. McMartin Preschool. Let's see.
Yeah. So it turns out that through these finder's documents, it was completely like what these kids claimed were completely true. There was like, let's see underneath. Let's see if I can find it. Let's see. One of the other significant facts: a small white plastic plate with 3 pentagrams hand drawn on top of light green paint was found by the archaeologists in the stratified dirt in the play yard. Per historical archaeologists, pentagrams were hand-drawn by an adult and not part of the manufacturer's design. Many other artifacts found whose analysis will be revealed upon completion. There were no doorknobs on Classroom 3's door, only a deadbolt lock. Each classroom had on and off light switch labeled fire alarm system, did not connect to fire station, but was used to alert within the school. More than 2,000 artifacts were found under the school floor, including 100 animal bones. So turns out that this whole satanic panic was actually true. And there's more that goes into it in the finder's document.
So yeah, no, I am familiar with it via Ted Gunderson, and he let's see, what is it here? Right here.
Oh, 80s. Okay.
It was the 80s.
Yeah.
I thought it was 90s when the trial happened.
Find, oops, wrong page. Find Gunderson. Private investigator Ted Gunderson shows hole dug by parents who were searching for an alleged secret room. Mm-hmm. This is his case, one of his. And Ted Gunderson was no small fry. He was a fucking major player in the FBI. Graduated. Gunderson joined FBI investigation 1951. He held posts as assistant special agent in charge in New Haven and Philadelphia. In 1973, he became head of the Memphis FBI office, then head of Dallas FBI. Ted Gunderson was appointed head of Los Angeles FBI in 1977, and he was interviewed for the job of FBI director. And this guy was huge. All of his videos, of course, are banned from YouTube. But I got to watch them. But of course, you can. I will plug this site, which I love. I spent so much time over here.
Oh, I know where you're talking.
Yeah. archive.org. Yep. And there's just how many videos do they have? I can't remember. It's like 4 million or something. And that they all the stuff that's generally suppressed, not all of it obviously, but you know, things that maybe slightly off the radar and are trying to be kept private, or you know, YouTube wants to suppress. Alphabet, of course, which ruled by certain people. Anyway, great place. Anybody who wants to look at for stuff, honestly, archive.org, you can find so much good stuff. It's all the stuff that was purged over the years and kept from us. Texts, books that were banned. They were banning books for hate speech and shit in the 1800s. Books that were published by like Cornell University, they would ban them for hate speech. Certain group didn't like them. Huh? What? I was like, the more I would dig, and I would just be like, oh, seriously. But, you know, good stuff over there. And so when people talk about the kids stuff, because I know people talk about the kids stuff a lot. The kids stuff I absolutely have researched over the years. I do believe it. It's just not gonna get us into court. It's gonna be dumb things like which direction was Stevenson traveling. That'll do it, because and people can look at it. You scare people away, a lot of people, because they don't want to know anything about kids. They're scared about the kids stuff. You know, CBC, even stuff to do with MK Ultra and stuff like that. There was definitely sexual abuse that was related to all that. They'll never tell you about that. They'll tell you about all the other stuff, piping them full of drugs, playing tapes, you know, for hours and hours and hours and hours, keeping people awake, whatever, sound torture, all kinds of different things, electroshock, blah, blah, blah. But they will never tell you about the sexual abuse, which is very important because that breaks the human mind. So I do believe it. You know, I'm not poo-pooing people on it. It's just, I think if it's got to stay on target.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that ever, because I don't mean to be dismissive of other people and their investigations and stuff like that, but I have a vision. I don't know. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't.
Well, only time will tell. All right. I got to jump off now.
All right. Thanks, everybody, for joining us tonight. I think it was really productive. Please let your friends know about, you know, keep that conversation alive. Tweet the RCMP. Let them know. Nothing you're doing is illegal by asking questions. Understand that. You know, I understand it's scary and stuff like that. We can't allow fear to rule us. We have for far too long. Got to stop.
No.
Thanks, Adrian.
That's well said. Thanks for having me on. It's always good to talk to you.
All right. God bless everybody.
All right. Take care, everyone.